Hi guys. Alright, I've got a really neat book for you this time. This one is called The Curious Garden. And you might be thinking, curious garden? How can a garden be curious? What does it mean to be curious? It means asking lots of questions, right, about things you don't understand. Like, why is the sky blue? Why does the grass grow? Why are my eyes brown and your eyes green or blue? Right? So being curious means asking a lot of questions. So what could it mean for a garden to be curious? Let's read it and find out. I think you guys will like this one. Okay, see ya. The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. There once was a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. However, there was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days while everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working ages ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last things he had expected to find up there. But when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help, so he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems. But the plants patiently waited, while Liam found better ways of gardening. What do you think he's doing there, guys? As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up farther and farther down the tracks and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. Over the next few months, Liam and the Curious Garden explored every corner of the railway. Look at that. That's a pretty neat looking garden. It's even got some butterflies. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. He's going sledding. I think Liam is looking up, wondering if his garden is okay. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. It's got some pretty good looking stuff now, huh? I like his hat. Winter had taken a toll on the garden, but thanks to Liam's planning, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. He's doing that again. What is he doing there, guys? The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up farther and farther from the railway, and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about old, forgotten things. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Do you guys know what these things are? Others mysteriously popped up all at once. What's he doing here, guys? Why do you think he's dressed up like that? But the most surprising things that popped up were the new gardeners. Look at these cool hedges. Yeah, they have a nice park now. I bet that feels nice on the bare feet. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed, but of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. Look at guys, here's Liam now. He's not a little boy anymore, is he? Looks like he's a father of his kids. And there's the city. I'm going to go back and show you the city at the beginning. It looks much nicer, don't you think? The end. Okay, so that's a really neat book, huh? I love this book. I love the pictures, amazing detail that the author puts in these pictures. So it's about Liam, right? And he sets out into this really gloomy, dreary city that's just nothing but brick and smoke and buildings and really dreary place. Like, who would want to live there? But Liam discovers that little garden, and he tends it, and he takes care of it, and he waters it, and slowly but surely it just blossoms and takes over the whole city and transforms it, changes it into this beautiful place that people want to be in. So you guys live in nature, and I know you guys live in the mountains, you live in the trees, in this beautiful part of the world that we live in. I want to know what you guys are curious about in nature. I'll give you an example, okay? Something I'm curious about. Tulips. I just planted some tulips in September, I think, and now they're just finally popping out of the ground. And they're beautiful, they're bright green, and they're just coming out of the ground now, but what I'm wondering is if they get snowed on, are they going to die? Or are they strong enough to survive through the snowstorm? So that's something about nature that I'm curious about. I want to hear something you guys are curious about in nature. All right, thanks for listening, guys. See ya.